So no matter what Final Fantasy game is your favorite, there's something for you in this Final Fantasy Magic the Gathering set, and you are about to watch one of the pre-con reviews here on the MTG Thoughtcast. Now, this is one of 4 for the series. If you want to watch all 4 of our pre-con reviews unedited, you can click the link somewhere over on the screen here that my brother John has provided. And if not, if you just want to watch the one that you clicked on, we'll see you there in 2 seconds. So this deck is Esper, which is white, blue, black, not to be confused with Esper from Final Fantasy, which seems to be a status. I don't know, maybe a type of magic. So this is Esper in Magic, which is white, blue, and black. And it is helmed by Yasholta. Oh, sorry, the deck is called Scions and Spellcraft. It is helmed by Yasholta, Knights Blessed. It's 1 white, blue, and a black for a 2/4 legendary cat warlock with vigilance. And this is an insane card. It says, at the beginning of each end step, if a player lost 4 or more life this turn, you draw a card. That's the first ability. Second ability. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell with mana value 3 or greater, Yasholta deals 2 damage to each opponent and you gain 2 life.
Also silly.
Busted. This is insane. This is my favorite of the commanders that have been printed. It's value engine .deck is what this is. It's so ridiculous. The fact that the first ability only cares about a player losing life and it triggers each turn. You're regularly, I would say, going to be drawing 4 cards a cycle off of this. So as soon as this comes down, you got to find a way to deal 4 damage, and then or to yourself or to anybody else, because it can be damage to yourself as well. That you've taken.
Oh.
Yeah, it's just a player takes 4 life. That player can be you. So if you have a way to deal 4 damage to yourself on each player's turn, you just draw a card for it.
Necropotence.
Exactly. That's not what the deck is trying to do, but it's definitely a way that you can build this. What I love is that this is so masterfully designed to me because it's open-ended. You can play this in a bunch of different directions and have that be viable. Like I said, you can do group slug where you're trying to deal damage to everybody on each player's turn. You can do self damage. You can do a suicide deck where you're trying to just take your own life total down and draw cards off of it. It also, like the non-creature spells thing, it just cares about mana value. It doesn't care that you paid 3 mana into it. This can be free spells. For example, there's a Snuff Out in the deck. This can be a free spell that has mana value 3 or greater, and you just get that 2 damage to each opponent, and you gain 2 life.
That's silly.
Ridiculous. It's so silly. It's up the beanstalk. So that's Yasholta, who I will obviously recommend to keep in the command zone. Our alternate commander is Grahatia, Scion Reborn. It's white, blue, and a black for a 2/3 cat wizard with lifelink. And whenever you cast a non-creature spell, you may pay X life, where X is that spell's mana value. If you do, create a 1/1 colorless hero creature token and put X +1/+1 counters on it. Do this only once each turn. Significantly less exciting, but you can pay life into it, which means that somebody's lost 4 more life. This helps with the first trigger for Yasholta. That's what I'm trying to say.
Cool.
So the whole point of the deck is just value creatures, value things that trigger Yasholta. A quick stat here. I went through and tracked everything that keeps track of Yasholta, and I think there's two things that I threw in here. So there's 30 plus spells that trigger Yasholta in this deck. So very, very exciting. Tons of synergy happening here. And that's just cards that trigger. Most of them will trigger her once. There's repeatable spells in here that will be able to trigger her multiple times as well. So you're just trying to do damage to your opponents. This is a very spell slingery kind of wizard focused deck, even though she's a warlock, which is really unfortunate because there's wizard support in the deck. So that's why I said the Bant deck is the most synergistic, because there's definitely stuff in here that's just for flavor purposes. Some of the new cards that are unbelievably exciting. Cannot wait to talk about this. Let's bring Emmett Selch of the Third Seat to the table. This is 2 blue and a black for a legendary creature. It's an Elder Wizard. It's 3/4. It says spells you cast from your graveyard cost 2 less to cast. So it's just cost reduction on its own. Whenever one or more opponents lose life, you may cast target instant or sorcery from your graveyard. If that spell would be put into your graveyard, exile it instead. Do this only once each turn. This is Snapcaster Mage every time your opponents lose life.
And if the spell you recast makes them lose life, guess what? I'm gonna Snapcaster again.
It only does it once each turn. So
once. Okay, yes, right.
It can't loop itself, but once per turn, your opponent's losing life. It just cares about an opponent as well. So if one of your opponents attacks one of your other opponents, bam, I get a Snapcaster Mage that's cost reduced by 2.
Stupid.
Nutty. Also, very important, it says you may cast target instant or sorcery from your graveyard. That breaks timing restrictions. So you can cast sorceries at instant speed with this. So it is better than Snapcaster Mage. This is ridiculous. I cannot believe how much value is crammed onto this one card. This is going to trigger every turn, obviously. And you're just going to churn through these cards in your graveyard, which will continue to trigger Yasholta as you're casting these things that are cost reduced. Because like we said, doesn't matter if you've paid 3 mana into this thing. She just cares about mana value 3 or greater. So if there's a 3 mana instant or a sorcery in your graveyard, somebody loses life, you pay 1 mana, get that thing back, trigger Yasholta again. Stupid. This is ridiculous. I can't believe it. This is one of my favorite cards that's been printed in this set. If you can't tell, a little excited about this deck. This is awesome. I like Emmett Selch it's such a neat card that will just get you so much value over the course of the game. That is the most exciting of the cards that I'm going to be talking about that are new. The other ones are more just kind of fun. I really love this design on White Auracite, which is a new removal piece that's been printed into white. It's just 2 white for an artifact. When it enters, you exile a non-land permanent an opponent controls until it leaves the battlefield, and it can tap for white.
Cool.
So it's just like a non-land permanent Oblivion Ring on an artifact that can tap for white. So anything, like we talk about all the time, for versatility, if you can find a card that fills multiple slots, so like this fills both ramp and interaction, and it's an artifact if you have stuff that cares about it. It also triggers Yasholta because it's a non-land card or a non-creature card that costs more than 3. So this is one of those beautiful, beautiful things that triggers her and fills multiple roles in the deck. So this is what I love to see from this type of deck, is just so much value off of one card. We're gonna be getting 2-for-1s, 3-for-1s.
Notable with that card, it's also in the main set. This is just a card that's reprinted it's printed in this commander deck. It's also part of the booster set.
They're obviously excited about this card as well. Last new card I want to talk about is Hildebrand Manderville. This is that's right. In this deck, it's cool because it's a way to you'll get multiple triggers off of Yasholta from one card, but it's also just a sick card. So it's 2 mana for a legendary creature, Human Detective. He's a 2/2 and says creature tokens you control get +1/+1, and whenever he dies, you may cast it from your graveyard as an adventure until the next turn. And the adventure side of it is Gentleman's Rise, which is 2 and a black. It's an instant, it's obviously an adventure, which means you cast it, it gets exiled, and then you can cast it for the creature side from exile. So you get the adventure side of it, 2 and a black, and it just makes a 2/2 black zombie creature token. So this, as you continue to play the adventure side and then play the creature side, and then it dies, you then get to play that from the graveyard again as the adventure side, re-trigger Yasholta, get another 2/2. He comes back in, all of your tokens are now 3/3s. It's a loop that you can get on. So I would say you want to block with him pretty often, because until the end of your next turn, you get to play him from the graveyard. So you don't have to play him as soon as he dies. You just get access to that adventure until the end of your next turn. So love the design on this. What a guy. The pose is immaculate. It's perfect. This is peak human form, I would say. But yeah, that's the kind of thing that this deck is really trying to do, is to just grind extra value off of a single card. Just see how far you can stretch that dollar. So there's some valuable reprints in this deck. One of them being Snuff Out, like we talked about earlier. This is like a $5 uncommon, a common, very importantly, because this is a Pauper staple.
We see you, Pauper.
That's right. This is a free interaction spell. It's a destroy a non-black creature. It can't be regenerated. That costs 4. Is mana value of 4. But you can, if you control a swamp, you can pay 4 life rather than pay the spell's mana cost. That triggers both halves of Yasholta. You get the pay 4 life and you get the 3 mana value and over. John, one of your favorite cards is in this deck. Authority of the Consuls is in here.
Yeah.
Obviously, since we want to just be sitting and durdling with our cards, we need a lot of control pieces in this deck. And Authority of the Consuls, as you know, is just gonna keep you alive for a very long time. So everything comes in tapped. This will certainly keep you alive against the Cloud deck, because it just negates that haste that's on Cloud there. So this is a really great control piece, and it is a lovely home in this deck. A piece of ramp that's awesome in here is Archaeomancer's Map. This is a 3 mana artifact. When it enters, you search your library for 2 basic planes, reveal them into your hand, shuffle, and then whenever a land an opponent controls enters, if that player controls more lands than you, you may put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield. So it's like a mini land tax plus a burgeoning in white on a 3 mana artifact. I really love Archaeomancer's Map, and it was creeping up to like $15. So this is a great reprint for this. And then there's a Crux of Fate in the deck for whatever reason. Obviously, there was dragons in Final Fantasy XIV, and they needed to depict that and give us a board wipe. So Crux of Fate, it is. I would say you are almost always going to choose non-dragons with this, unless there's an dragon player that you hate. And then you can just say destroy all dragons, and it's probably the correct move if there's an dragon player at the table. So those are some of the good reprints in the deck. Man, like I said, there is 33 different things in the deck that trigger Yasholta. Most of them are control pieces. There's some really cool, like I said, some synergy with being able to play a card with mana value 3 multiple times. So there's things like Lingering Souls in the deck that is mana value 3. So you get the trigger, and then it will come back with flashback. It's still mana value 3, so you get that trigger again and again and again. Nice. So loving stuff like that. There is an Exsanguinate in the deck as well, just to close out the old game. Sometimes you got to do it. So just like the Mardu deck, just like the Mardu deck has the Ultimatum in it, this just has Exsanguinate. So this, I would say, plays like a pretty traditional control deck. You're going to be drawing, doing something on your turn that's going to get you some value, and then passing the turn and just letting your opponents play and just playing some police as you hopefully find some ways to drain life totals or your own life total to continue to draw cards off of Yasholta, and then just continuing to trigger her second ability to dome the table for 2 and gain yourself 2. This is going to be a grindy deck that I personally would be very excited to play. There's some really cool sort of sub themes in here of expensive cards that get cheaper to play. Like there's an Into the Story in the deck that is a 7 mana spell that costs 3 less if someone has 7 or more cards in their graveyard, and you draw 4 cards off of it. So there's really cool stuff like that. Some ways to improve the deck, some ads that I would say. This one this might be my favorite ad to any deck that I've ever reviewed on this show, because it is so unbelievably perfect. Like I said, we're playing control, so we already want propaganda, right? There's already a propaganda in the deck as well. Yes. They include one. You obviously want that because it triggers Yasholta on its 3 mana value, and then it keeps you safe. It also, really importantly, directs creatures at your opponents, which will help that second ability, your opponents losing 4 life, not you losing 4 life to draw your cards. So we could be putting a Ghostly Prison in. We could be putting a Sphere of Safety in. But we're going to put a Norn's Annex in this deck.
Yes.
Because it costs 3 and 2 white Phyrexian, which is 4 life.
4 life.
Which means it triggers both halves of Yasholta, and it redirects damage to your opponents via its tax of creatures can't attack you or planeswalkers you control unless their controller pays a white Phyrexian for each of those creatures. So, on their turns, they're faced with either paying a white mana to attack you, which is not going to happen. That is so unbelievably rare to just have a white mana open for each creature. So they can pay 2 life for each creature to attack you, which would deal, it would have an opponent who's lost 4 life that turn if they decide to attack you, or they can just attack your opponents for free. And Yasholta still triggers because somebody else has lost 4 life. All of that on a card that when you cast it triggers both halves of Yasholta. This is the most perfect card that I've ever found for a precon upgrade. So mega excited about Norn's Annex in this deck. I think we need a way to win the game in here. There's a lot of grindiness in here. Something that I would be really looking to put in here is a Painful Quandary as a win condition. Ooh. So it's 5 mana on enchantment. So again, triggers Yasholta. Whenever an opponent casts a spell, that player loses 5 life unless they discard a card. So controls hands, so you're giving your opponents the option to either 2-for-1 themselves for every spell they cast, which won't last long. They will be empty-handed at some point, which is exactly where this deck would like your opponents to be. Or they can take 5 life to cast their spells, which also won't last long, and that triggers Yasholta to let you draw some more cards off of your opponents paying 5 life to cast their spells. So Painful Quandary, I think, is the most perfect of win conditions in here. It also, enchantments are really hard to deal with. So, this is just going to stick. If it doesn't get countered, it's probably going to stay on the board until it wins you the game. Once again, very little protection in this deck. So I think a neat protection spell is, I mentioned this when talking about the Mardu deck. Is a redundant copy of your commander, so that they now have your opponents have to deal with 2 of the same thing. In this case, you can actually just do 2 of the same thing, and you can play Irenicus's Vile Duplication in this deck, which is a 4-mana sorcery that creates a token that's a copy of a creature you control, except the token has flying and isn't legendary. So you can just make a flying copy of Yasholta. Not only is that going to trigger your original Yasholta that will deal 2 damage to the table, you gain 2 life. That now makes it so that you have 2 of those, which means that every subsequent instant or sorcery deals how much? 4 damage to the table, which will trigger Yasholta.
And the other one.
And the other one, so you'll draw 2 cards on each end step off of that. Ridiculous.
Plus doing something like that makes the right of replication in the deck better too, because then you could make copies,
legendary copies.
Uh-huh.
It's so funny. I toyed around for a second with what does Nanogene Conversion do in this deck, which is a 4 mana, all creatures on the board become a non-legendary copy of a creature. And I lost track once I realized that everybody would be drawing all of those for each creature they draw. Every single one of the Yasholta, every creature on the board would draw a card at the end step. So it just got
funny.
Don't include that. So that's where I landed on Irenicus's Vile Duplication. You saw where I was trying to go. It was just make extra copies of your commander. And we had to dial that back to Irenicus's Vile Duplication. Another sort of similar card to the commander, it's not the same, it's sort of similar to the bottom half of Yasholta, is Sig River Cutthroat. So this is hybrid blue-black for a 1/3 Merfolk Rogue. It's obviously legendary. At the beginning of each end step, if an opponent lost 3 or more life this turn, you may draw a card. So this is just sort of a redundant trigger for a second ability. And then just for some funsies, this is the Hear Me Out ad. I want to throw a Commandeer in this deck because I can't in good conscience recommend putting all of the free spells in this. Obviously, this is a ridiculous commander for things like Force of Will and Force of Negation and Deadly Rollick and all of these free spells that trigger once your commander's in play or have additional cost. Commandeer is a 7-mana instant that's $1 that you can exile 2 blue cards from your hand rather than pay the spell's mana cost to gain control of target non-creature spell, and you can choose new targets for it. So if someone plays like a Planeswalker, you can just commandeer it, and then it comes onto your side of the table, and you control it. But this is one of the more the higher ceiling of the like USD cheap free spells, because there's obviously like Misdirect, that's like a $10 card. There's like Foil, but that's a bad card. So Commandeer felt like it sat in the right spot for me. It also it normally is negated by having to exile 2 blue cards from your hand, but with how many cards Yashilta is drawing, I don't think that's really going to be a problem. So that's my hear me out ad, is Commandeer into this deck. I'm personally really excited for Yashilta in more of a bracket 4, bracket 5 sort of CDH range, where it's like stick her down and then just start playing all of the free spells and just get all of the card draw and completely dominate the table with the value that she adds. So this is the one that that I think I would be interested in getting the face commander of the most, not necessarily the entire deck. But it's cool. There's like, I think the inherent problem with the deck is they want to showcase the Final Fantasy stuff, which is a ton of legendary creatures, and they have a face commander that cares about casting non-creature spells. Yeah. So they've done what they can, like I said, with like Hildebrand, where they have a cool legendary creature that also has an adventure on it that allows you to continue to trigger your commander. But I would say on face value, the deck probably needs a lot of work to take out a lot of the legendary creatures that are there for flavor purposes. But man, that's the Esper deck, and it's tight.
It's very cool. Out of 10?
6 out of 10 on face value. Commander is 10 out of 10.